If you've been watching my channel for a while, you've likely noticed that I've got a bit of a soft spot for displacement sensors, and flexures, and optointerrupters. So here we go again. For some time, I've been wanting to revisit this displacement sensor I shared a couple of years ago. There are a lot of things I've been really happy with on that sensor, and I continued to use it regularly until I lucked into my new daily driver. But even though I don't use it as much, I really wanted to see if I could improve on the one major frustration I've had with it. Mounting this thing is far from ideal. So for the next iteration, I really wanted something with a cylindrical body, coaxial with the sensing axis. This should make orienting it relative to whatever I'm measuring much easier. On the performance front, I'd love to see an improvement, but honestly, I'll be okay if I just hit parity if the mounting's easy and reliable. I think for any meaningful performance improvements, I'd need to focus on the electronics. Actually, that's not true. Me focusing on the electronics would do no good, but I think the electronics are where the low-hanging fruit is at this point. So how exactly is this the spiritual successor to this? While they look very different, the basic operation's the same. A stylus contacts whatever's being measured on one end, and a knife-edge optointerrupter pair converts the movement to an electrical signal on the other end. I talk about how these fellows work in the previous video, but the gist is that you can get an output voltage proportional to where the knife edge is sitting within the opto's little optical path. And the whole purpose of the flexures is to ensure that the stylus to knife edge link moves in as close to a straight line as possible. The previous version used this double compound flexure configuration to get the linear motion. For the new one, I swapped these out for a pair of diaphragm flexures. When I say diaphragm flexures, I'm referring to these: a stiff outer rim, a stiff inner hub, and some flexi bits between them. Those flexi bits are intended to constrain the motion of the hub relative to the rim. For my purposes, I want those constraints to be as stiff as possible for rotations around Z and translations in both X and Y, and as compliant as possible for translations along Z and rotations about X and Y. To achieve that are a bunch of beams connected together. Each beam acts like a spring, and by arranging them in series, parallel, or some combination, you can tailor the characteristics of the flexure. If you really need a flexure design that performs to calculation, the best place I know to look is this book by Stuart Smith. But math is hard, and FDM printing breaks most of the assumptions anyway, so I decided to just put together a little set of experiments to zero in on a design for my sensor. One of the designs had my beams all lined up in series, and another had more of a combination of parallel and series links. And then for the other two designs, I opted to use the same flexure layout and only modified the shapes of the beams instead of the arrangements of them. I left the thickness unchanged, but I increased the width from 5mm to 7mm. For the beam in this orientation, that's increasing a value that has a cubic impact on stiffness. That orientation is also the one I expect to be stressed for forces applied radially to my sensor. These tests will allow me to look at how well that simplified beam estimating works out for me. I decided to measure 3 performance metrics for my flexures: axial stiffness, radial stiffness, and torsional stiffness. And for my purposes, I want low axial with high radial and torsional. So I made up these test parts and a little stand with different mounts for each test. The mount held the part in the desired orientation, and a displacement sensor mounted overhead measured the deflection as weights were applied. I've been saying test part, but there were actually assemblies of 2 printed flexures. I wanted to be able to print my flexures flat to the build plate, but I also wanted to make sure I wasn't introducing any unintended moments or anything. So by stacking 2, I could make sure the load path for my radial and torsional tests are fully supported. If you want all the juicy deets on these tests, I'll include some links down in the description. But the long and short of it is that the symmetric version showed significantly better ratios of axial to radial and axial to torsional stiffness. So that's the design that earned a spot in the sensor. For the beam width, I went for something in between my test values. In the sensor, these flexures are again paired. As I mentioned a bit earlier, the diaphragm flexures have 3 degrees of freedom, 1 translation and 2 rotational. By linking 2 at a distance apart, if one were to rotate, it would require the other to move radially, which is one of them stiff directions. So coupling the 2 together removes those 2 rotational freedoms and leaves us just one sweet, sweet freedom. I really wanted to integrate the stylus and knife edges into their respective flexure hubs. So to link the hubs, there's this printed bit in the middle with pressed-in pins in each end. Those pins then have a tight fit into each hub, which gives me the needed constraints between the hubs. One major downside of the design is that it doesn't have any adjustability to the position of the knife edge relative to the opto. Luckily, mine worked first time out, but I honestly consider that more luck than anything. The total sensing range on the particular opto I'm using is only 0.5 mm, so it's not hard to eat that up in a stack up of printed parts. But I'll take lucky. I added this little strain relief bracket for the leads coming off the optos, and then a second strain relief point on the back of the cone for the jacketed cable. I should point out a real precision design oopsie here. I was so proud of myself for remembering strain relief, but I could and should have done this smarter. As it is, the load path for a tug on the cable does indeed go into the housing instead of going directly to my delicate opto. However, I've designed it as a stack through here, so the load path goes through the cone, then through the opto mount, then into the housing and into the structure. I really should have designed this so that the load path is isolated from the opto as much as possible, but this probably still falls well into that electronics matter more category for now, or at least that's my justification to say. On to testing. Last time, I did my calibrating by stepping through gauge block thicknesses, but I decided to have some fun and try something different this time. Since my confocal has an expired CalCert, I decided to trust it as my ground truth. I rigged it up so that the confocal and diaphragm sensor were as close to coaxial as I could eyeball, and then I put an aluminum block mounted to a linear stage between them. So by continuously collecting both sensor readings while moving the block back and forth, I get myself a curve. The y-axis is the measured voltage from the diaphragm sensor, and the x-axis is the measured position from the confocal. It just warms my heart when I get a plot that looks an awful lot like something in a datasheet. It does look to me like this roll-off is a bit squared off, which makes me think I could probably better optimize my resistor values, but close enough. This plot's looking at just the usable region from a series of 10 up and back measurement cycles. Subtracting those points from the linear fit gives me a look at the linearity error. No huge shock. These things are pretty nonlinear. For comparison, here's how it looks alongside the equivalent linearity plot for Gen 1. What a difference some data density can make, eh? But, data density aside, the total nonlinearity of the new version is about plus minus 30 microns compared to the plus minus 50 microns of its predecessor. But, because I used a different opto for that one, it also had almost twice the range. So, apples to apples, I'd say they're pretty similar on that front. However, as I talked about in the previous video, when performance matters, I'll likely use these with a lookup table instead of a linear fit. And these plots show the deviation from average for old and new. Again, I think the data density offered by using the confocal makes this so much more useful to look at. As would be expected, the uncertainty drops as the sensitivity drops. In version 1, I saw a peak-to-peak variation of a little over 6 microns, and in version 2, it's a tad over 4. But, importantly, version 2 has enough data to actually give usable stats. The 3 sigma repeatability was a little better than 2 microns. So I feel like I hit my goal of matching the specs of my last attempt, and now I can just toss it in a V-block to hold it. All things considered, I feel like it's a success, and I'm quite happy with it. The only thing I still may tinker with is making the flexures just a tad more compliant. But this one being a tad stiffer than expected did make me realize it probably could be pretty easily converted to another useful purpose. Go gadget load cell.